perform its high duty as in thy sight. Give divine guidance to the President of the Republic, thou members of Parliament and ministers of state with discernment and vision, integrity and courage, that through the labors of government, this land and people may be well and truly served. Thy good purposes for the common human life be realized in our midst. O God, grant us the vision of our country, fair as it might be, country of righteousness, where none shall wrong his neighbor, country of plenty, where evil and poverty shall be done away with, country of brotherhood, where all success shall be founded on service and honor shall be given to the deserving, country of peace, where government shall rest on the will of the people and the love for the common good. Bless the effort of those who struggle to make this vision a living reality. Inspire and strengthen our people that they may give time, thoughts, and sacrifice to speed the day, the coming beauty of Ghana and Africa. Amen. Honourable members, correctional votes and proceedings and official report. Starting from the votes and proceedings of Tuesday, the 30th November 2021. Page 1, page 2, page 3, page 4, page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8, page 9, page 10. Yes, Honorable Deputy Whip.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, sorry to take you back to page 5. On page 5, Mr. Speaker, I can see the following honorable members were present. On page 5, the last person who is part of those who were present, the Honorable Yusuf Mustafa, and his number is 137. Does it mean from the votes and proceedings, only 137 honorable members were in the chamber on yesterday? The Speaker, I'm speaking based on the records and the votes and proceedings I'm holding. Wednesday, 30th November 2021, the House met at 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and it says the following honorable members were present from page 1. And the Speaker, the last person in the list of those honorable members who were present is Honorable Yusuf Mustafa. That's number 137. Now, Speaker, I'm just asking this to seek your guidance. And the Speaker, if my honorable colleagues will listen to me well, I'm asking it because, the Speaker, I know technical.
Honorable, I can hear you. I understand you.
The Speaker, let me conclude. I know that yesterday the Honorable Speaker was not in the country, and therefore definitely he was not in the chamber. And I know, Mr. Speaker, at least one of the deputies or any member of Parliament can be elected to preside per our standing orders. And Mr. Speaker, I know per order 48, Mr. Speaker, the member presiding does not form part of quorum. So technically, Mr. Speaker, once I saw 137, and I know you presided, technically I strongly believe that, Mr. Speaker, you were not part of those who were to constitute quorum. Yes. And Mr. Speaker, I'm raising this because ordinance of our standing order says that Mr. Speaker cannot take part of debate. Or you cannot take part of it.
You are raising an issue related to I'm using this to make an argument.
I'm speaking
you raised the question about numbers. Let's deal with the numbers.
Mr. Speaker, I'm speaking based on numbers, and I'm saying that you were not in the chamber as a member of parliament yesterday. So, Mr. Speaker, and I know there are other 48, Mr. Speaker, once you presided, you do not form part of the quorum. So I'm raising this just to seek your guidance.
Yes, Honorable Leader.
The Speaker, in the first place, the record that the Deputy Whip is referring to is inaccurate unless he has elected not to follow the number registered. The Speaker, the number registered on page 5 is 138 and not 137. The number registered is 138 and not 137. The Speaker, so what he has said is inaccurate. The number of members present, the votes and proceedings is not talking about the correct number. The number present has nothing to do with a correct number for anything. It's number of MPs who were present in the chamber, who have been recorded, and the number is 138. The Speaker, now he's mixing apples with oranges. After he's gotten it wrong on the number of members present, he's now mixing it up with a correct number for the transaction of business. And the correct number for the transaction of business, which he referred to, is 1/3 of all the members in this House, which should be 92 plus. The number registered here is more than 92. In any event, the Speaker, where he is referring to has nothing to do with the correct number. It has nothing to do with the quorum for the transaction of business, normal business, or for the transaction of a matter that will lead to the taking of a decision. So
thank you, Leader. Let's continue with the votes and proceedings.
What is raised is neither here nor there, and it's much ado about nothing.
The record in the vote and proceedings is members present 138, not 137. I'm on page 10. If it is about the same number, please wait. After the vote and proceedings, you can raise that as a different matter. Now, let's continue the correction of vote and proceedings. Can we continue with the votes and proceedings? I'll give you all the time to make your arguments, but for now, let's continue with the votes and proceedings. Please. Page 11. Page 12. Yes, Leader.
Mr. Speaker, page 12. After the line quorum number present in the chamber 137, I see a word there, curate. Is that quorum or is a new word, or I got it wrong? Bringing the total curate number to 138. Okay. 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 Thank you.
Page 13. Page 14. Page 14. Page 15. Yes, Honorable Member Fokwadase.
I've been standing on page 13. I didn't catch your eye. Please, on line 3, 2022, subject to the concessions outlined It should be a past tense. There should be a D after the E, outlined by the Honorable Minister, Responsible for Finance. Thank you.
Well, page 14, page 15, page 16, page 17. Enough members, the votes and proceedings of Tuesday, 30th November is hereby adopted as a true record of proceedings. I have two official reports. Monday, July 26, 2021. Any corrections? The official report of Monday, July 26, 2021. Any corrections? In the absence of any corrections. Yes.
Mr. Speaker, I don't believe we have copies of the official reports that you are referring to. I haven't seen a copy. I'm just coming from the mail room, and it's not in my taking home.
Call your neighbors. People should come. Call your neighbors. Call your neighbors. Where should people be out?
Can I find out, do members have the official report for the Monday and Tuesday, 26th and 27th July? Do members have copies?
Some members don't have copies.
Very well. In that case, I'll defer corrections of the official report for Monday, 26th and 27th July to tomorrow. Yes, Honorable Minority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, may I with respect refer you to Order 51 of our standing orders, which reads, at the time appointed for the purpose under Order 53, Order of Business, any member may, with the prior approval of Mr. Speaker, move a motion on a specific matter of urgent public importance. Mr. Speaker, yesterday, as is reported by the votes and proceedings, which has just been adopted by you, I'm begging to move, with your indulgence, that the decision which was taken yesterday in adopting purportedly a budget statement subject to concessions in that statement was unconstitutional, in betrayal of our rules and standing orders, and in betrayal of the 1992 Constitution, Mr. Speaker, particularly so that you, in the chair, added yourself to the number of members who made a quorum. May I, with respect, Mr. Speaker, refer you to Order 48 of our standing orders. Order 48 of our standing orders. So, Mr. Speaker, I'm moving a motion for rescission. That decision is illegal. That decision is unconstitutional. Just as 137 cannot take a decision, the same 137 cannot take a decision.
Hold on. Yes, Honorable Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, my colleague, the Minority Leader, is coming under Order 51, which reads, at the time appointed for the purpose under Order 53, as order of business, any member may, with the prior approval of Mr. Speaker, move a motion on a specific matter of urgent public importance. Mr. Speaker, my colleague, in reading that order, conveniently omitted the prior approval of Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, he read the order under which he is coming and omitted that phrase. Mr. Speaker, I'm raising a preliminary issue, and that has to do with whether or not he has sought your prior approval. Mr. Speaker, that is what I want to know. Thank you very much.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday I listened to him from the comfort of my offices invoke the same standing orders. You are what? You invoke the same standing orders. I'm doing the same. Mr. Speaker,
take your nose mask.
Mr. Speaker, let me refer you to Order 48.1, which reads, the presence of at least 1/3 of all the members of Parliament besides the person presiding shall be necessary to constitute a quorum for the House. So, Mr. Speaker, even adding yourself to the quorum yesterday itself is in betrayal of our standing order 48.1.
Yesterday, the Speaker never said he received prior notice from him before allowing his friend.
Mr. Speaker, yesterday as I followed proceedings, I did not hear the chair and the speakership acknowledge that there was any written statement seeking to use Order 51 by the majority leader. Mr. Speaker, let me also with respect refer you to our standing order 109. Mr. Speaker, standing order 109 reads, and I'm interested, Mr. Speaker, in 109.2. You were presiding, and therefore, by the provisions of standing order 30, you assume the role and responsibility of the Speaker of Parliament of Ghana. And it reads, Mr. Speaker shall have neither an original nor a custom vote. And if upon any question before the House, the votes are equally divided, the motion shall be lost. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, as I have seen in the other paper, we are told on Friday 137 could not take a decision. And therefore, last one with you in the chair was 137. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, whatever decision was taken, to quote you, is null and void, because the votes and proceedings report that the decision, let me refer you to the page. Let me refer you to the page, Mr. Speaker. If you come to page 12, I hear quorum 137. Then when question was put, Mr. Speaker, I don't see any other number. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I'm stating strongly that you have no original nor custom vote. But I recognize that you are a member of Parliament. Therefore, you could not. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I'm calling for a rescission
You will see hooting today.
That decision of yesterday, Mr. Speaker, let me refer you additionally to Article 104 of the 1992 Constitution, which provides, Mr. Speaker, in 104(2), the Speaker shall have neither an original nor casting vote. Therefore, for you to have courageously referred to yourself as adding to the numbers is repugnant to the provisions of the 1992 Constitution, in particular Article 104(2), and a serious breach and violation of Standing Order 109 of the Standing Orders of the Parliament of Ghana, and a serious breach of Order 48 of the Standing Orders of Parliament. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I'm calling for a rescission of that decision. Mr. Speaker, what is even more worrying was to hear the majority leader and Minister for Finance all use the words when he was moving the motion, that the motion is adopt the budget subject to concessions. Which concessions? Concessions in your head or concessions in the head of the Finance Minister? This is a house of record. Even if there are concessions, the concessions must be laid and made a necessary part of the budget statement. And made a necessary part of the budget statement, because those concessions will amend aspects of the budget and economic policy of government, not in the imagination or in the thinking of a Minister for Finance. Therefore, to accept a motion subject to concessions which is not known to this august House in the exercise of our important mandate of oversight, our important mandate over scrutiny of the public purse, Mr. Speaker, I can only ask for a rescission. Mr. Speaker, the other day, our colleague this side, they chose to walk out, even though yesterday you tried to help them understand when you added yourself to quorum. Then it means we could have added them to the quorum of the day they walked out, Mr. Speaker, because they were in the chamber. By extension, they were in the chamber and they are present. It is only when, Mr. Speaker, they were wanting to avoid humiliating defeat. And let me refer you to it, Mr. Speaker. Again, Article 104(3) of the Constitution. And Mr. Speaker, I read, where the votes on a motion are equal, it shall be taken to be a loss. Mr. Speaker, the votes and proceedings of yesterday reported 274 members, 137 intact. So whether you took part, you didn't take part, you only could be 137. You only. Because one of your members, Sarah Adwosafu, was absent. Not yesterday. On Friday. On Friday. Mr. Speaker, so we are calling for a rescission. We are calling for a rescission. So I beg to move, Mr. Speaker, that the decision of the House yesterday purporting to adopt a budget statement subject to concessions not known to this august House be declared a nullity and unconstitutional. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move. Yesterday, I heard you rely on the same Order 50, 1 and 2. I'm relying on the same standing order 51 and 2. And Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that this August House could not proceed in adopting a motion in the matter of budget statement and oversight with unaccompanied and unknown concessions only known in the imagination and thinking of a Minister of Finance. He does not walk to this house on his own authority. He does under Article 179 of the 1992 Constitution. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker,
Honorable members, order.
Mr. Speaker, in concluding on my motion,
Honorable members, order. Let's listen to the application by the Honorable Minister. Honorable members, order, please. Order. Let's listen to the leaders, please.
Mr. Speaker, yes, it's true. I welcome the Honorable Adua Safo in that hairstyle. But Mr. Speaker, I was referring to the votes and proceedings of Friday, 26 November 2021, when I said that the votes reported, and accurately and rightly so, the votes and proceedings of Friday, 26 November 2021, reported that the Honorable Sarah Adua Safo was absent with permission. And therefore, I'm saying that if 137 took a decision which was declared a nullity, and the same 137 yesterday took a decision, it's only appropriate. We do not recognize that the presiding officer of the Speaker has an original or a casting vote, and therefore you could not be more than 137. I so submit. So I beg to move that the motion that was adopted be rescinded and the Minister of Finance be authorized to lay before this House any concessions he is keeping in his head. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Minister for. Let me hear the majority leader, please.
Now, Speaker, the motion has to be seconded. That's what you granted him yesterday. Do the same thing to me. Let it be seconded, then he can make his point. I move a motion. It has to be seconded by our rules. That is what you granted him yesterday, and the same standing order 50. I saw him vote it. Thank you. Mr. Speaker, I cannot
I cannot deny the Honorable Minority Leader his right to move a motion. All that I'm seeking to know from the chair, because he is quoting from Order 51. The Speaker, and in quoting the order, he did not quote the full complement of the order, which is what I did. And I'm asking whether the Minority Leader sought the prior approval of the chair, of the Speaker. I did. You were not here. I did before coming to the House. So I want to know from the chair whether you have done that. That's my simple request to the chair. The Speaker, so I'm awaiting your directive on this before the motion gets seconded.
Honourable members, Order 51, as read by the Minority Leader, it's clear that with the prior approval of the Speaker, move a motion on a specific. I sat in the lobby for 1.5 hours before I came here. The clerks at table will confirm. That I sat at the office for 1.5 hours before Ruby. Neither the Minority Leader nor anybody told me anything of his intention to apply under Order 50 for any such application. So no prior approval has been obtained. The application, therefore, is not properly before me. I am nothing.
Let's vote on it. We will vote on the prior approval. The House must hear the motion.
You don't want to govern. It will happen. You don't want to govern.
Yes, Honourable Member for Boku Central.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, yesterday we were not in the chamber. But we observed the proceedings on television. Mr. Speaker, we listened to the majority group leader move the motion. And he moved the motion pursuant to Order 51. But Mr. Speaker, Order 51, as you are saying, is controlled by Order 52. Mr. Speaker, assuming without admitting that that is indeed the position, we did not hear you, Mr. Speaker, say that prior to coming to this chamber, he had consulted you in a written statement. Sorry. We did not hear you. We did not hear you put before this House evidence of the written statement. Why is it that suddenly today, when we seek to also move pursuant to the same order, the issue of a written statement has become an obstacle? If yesterday a written statement was not necessary and it was not displayed in this House, and you did not make reference to it in this house. How come that today a written statement has suddenly become so important? Mr. Speaker, if there was a written statement, I urge Mr. Speaker to display the written statement before us today. Here and now, Mr. Speaker, there was no written statement. Let's go on to the same order. I therefore second the motion moved by the minority leader. Let's go on to the order that he used to move the motion. Mr. Speaker, the issues before this House.
Honourable Member, we haven't gone
very
through the
simple.
issue. I'm taking notes of the point the leader said. I'm really willing and ready to listen and make a ruling. But we have to cross the bridge before we get there. Yes, Honourable. I thought you were speaking to.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the rule is clear. The rule is clear, 51, that it is with the prior approval of the Speaker. Which Speaker? 51, prior approval. Mr. Speaker, the matter was raised yesterday subject to your prior approval. We have raised the issue today and there is no prior approval, and therefore it is not a post-submission approval. So they are completely out of order. Mr. Speaker, for a member of parliament to tell the Speaker to place on the table what has come to him, it is an unacceptable position. Our friends on the other side had the right to raise it yesterday. They did not come because they knew they were losing. Mr. Speaker, let us not confuse the public. The rule says that 138 MPs should be present. It didn't say 100% of them should approve. He said majority should approve. Mr. Speaker, the definition of who is an MP in this house is determined by law. You sitting there, you are the MP of the choir, not subject to the wits and caprices of the minority. So we were 138 clothed with a jurisdiction to be determined by a majority, not necessarily 138. On their time, they didn't have it. Period. Mr. Speaker, this country can do without all this question. Let us fix them. They are out of order. Period. And we move forward.
Yes, Honourable.
Right, Honourable Speaker, I thank you for the opportunity. Mr. Speaker, I can notice on the side of the majority group, a former senior colleague of the House, current Agric Minister, is not properly dressed to be in this chamber. And I want to direct him to either get out, to come back to the House properly dressed. He is not properly dressed to be in the chamber. Mr. Speaker, it's a convention in this house that when you wear a suit, it must come with a tie. The Greek minister is not properly dressed because he's wearing a suit without a tie.
Yes, Honourable Minister for Local Government. Are you responding to the issue relating to the Minister for Agri?
Yes.
Yes.
Right, Honourable Speaker. We stay in Ghana, in Africa, I will always talk about colonialism and neo-colonialism. Right, Honorable Speaker, in Westminster, the British Parliament, the Speaker of British Parliament has ruled that members of Parliament in British Parliament can enter British Parliament without putting on attack. In British Parliament, the Speaker of British Parliament has ruled, and for this year, all of us, we have watched Prime Minister's questions in Westminster, where people have stood up and asked questions not in time. In British Parliament, you sit in Ghana, and shamefully want to say that somebody is not tying a tie around his neck, so he's not properly dressed. Whereas in British Parliament, they go there without tie. This is shameful, and the Speaker, please dismiss it.
Yes, Honorable Chief.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'm surprised at the argument of the former Minority Chief Whip. He knows that Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, a motion was ably moved by the minority leader, and it was seconded by Honorable Mama Yerga. Even though
Honorable Muntaka, I thought you were going to respond to the Honorable.
it became news because it was part of what I was going to say, but it became news when the Minister of Agriculture walked away. Because when my colleague, the former Deputy Minority Whip, who was in charge of discipline, and he knew very well the dress code, that if you choose to wear an African wear like he's wearing, is permissible and decent. But when you choose to wear a suit without a tie, you are improperly dressed. It is beyond doubt. In this parliament, it has been ruled severally. But if you choose to wear a tie and tie like yours, now he's properly dressed, you can sit in. Now the Speaker, to add, the Speaker, yesterday, what happened was an infidelity.
Can we bring a closure?
And the Speaker, I just want to refer you
Honorable Chief Whip, can we bring a closure to the motion, the matter brought by the Honorable Member for Adaklu? Very well. Honorable members, I think that the Honorable Minister, after listening, can you resume your seat, please, the Chief Whips? After listening to the objection, has gone to put on a tie. Indeed, let it be on record that our dress code, the admissible dress to Parliament, if you choose to wear a suit, you must wear a tie. If you choose to wear an African dress, then you're not bound to wear a tie. But once you choose to wear a suit, then you must wear a tie. The Minister has complied. So now I'm listening to the Minister, Minority Leader. I'm listening to the Majority Leader. Yes.
Mr. Speaker, respectfully, what I raised was a preliminary issue. But beyond that, the minority leader went on and made his submission in support of the motion that he has filed or wants to make. Mr. Speaker, if you permit me, because the first one was just a preliminary issue, I can appropriately respond to the issues that he has raised. Mr. Speaker, that is, if you accept the motion, then I can respond to it and you make a ruling. Because as far as I'm concerned,
It is honorable.
Well, I have earlier observed that the minority leader had every opportunity to speak to me about this, whether on phone or in the chamber. The first time I saw him today was when we were processing into the chamber. We shared greetings. He didn't mention any such thing to me. So very clearly, the prior approval part has not been sought. The Honorable Mama is saying that if there was prior approval sought in the majority leader's application yesterday, I should put the evidence before the House. It is a very interesting request made of me. It is it's difficult to ignore such very loud comments, but I'll strive to ignore them. However, I will permit you to make your application, and then I will determine.
He's permitting. Accepted. He's permitted. He's permitted.
I'll permit the honorable member for Boko to now make your second, and then I'll listen to contributors and I'll make my ruling.
Thank you very much, Right Honorable Speaker, for granting our request to move a motion pursuant to Order 50, one for rescission that was made yesterday. We are now moving that which happened yesterday should also be set aside on the grounds that the issues that it permitted, Mr. Speaker, are issues that could not have taken place because, like the minority leader has argued, there was no quorum in this House to transact business. Mr. Speaker, the issues of quorum to take decision, is clearly spelled out in the Constitution and the standing orders. The Constitution is very clear, Mr. Speaker, that first 102, a quorum of Parliament apart from the person presiding. A quorum of Parliament apart from the person presiding shall be 1/3 of all the members of Parliament. 1/3 of all the members of Parliament. Mr. Speaker, I emphasize the word apart from the person presiding to begin an argument about a chain of arrangement that intends that when we are discussing the question of quorum, we should always leave the person presiding. That anytime we are discussing quorum, we should always leave out the person presiding. That is the argument. Whether it is a quorum to transact business
or a quorum to take decision, always leave out the person presiding. Mr. Speaker, this provision has been repeated in Order 48 of our standing orders, which says the presence of at least 1/3 of all the members of Parliament, besides the person presiding, shall be necessary to constitute a quorum of the House. Speaker, it is clear that all the time we should take away the person presiding, regardless of whether he is the substantive speaker, the first deputy speaker, or even the second deputy speaker. But yesterday, Mr. Speaker, you were presiding, and even though we were not in the chamber, we heard you counting yourself among the people who should be counted to constitute quorum for taking a decision in this House. That is why we say that what happened yesterday was irregular and cannot stand, because you were presiding and you counted yourself, when the intention of the Constitution is that any time that we are discussing quorum, we should put aside the person presiding when counted. Mr. Speaker, let me further buttress the arguments that we are making, that when you are presiding as a deputy speaker, first deputy or second deputy speaker, I've heard arguments, oh, but the person is a member of Parliament. At the time when you assume the seat, you are no longer ordinarily a member of Parliament. You are no longer ordinarily a member of Parliament. Mr. Speaker, that is the reason why when you assume the seat, we are all compelled to now have reverence for you as the Speaker, to follow your directives. You assume all the powers of a Speaker. So how can you be sitting there as the Speaker and still maintain your status as an ordinary member of Parliament? That is an absurdity. That is something that ordinarily I don't understand, and I appreciate when the ordinary person in the street doesn't understand. And I'm not surprised that on radio this morning, the public was asking, was there a decision or was there no decision? Because they also agree that when you are sitting there, you cannot count yourself as an ordinary member of Parliament. So, Mr. Speaker, clearly what happened yesterday was an illegality. If the position is the what happened today on Friday was an illegality.
Honorable member, hold on. Yes, Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker.
Order. Honorable members, order. I have just given somebody a floor. Can you resume your seat? Yes, let me hear you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, respectfully, I rise on the point of order on the statement that has been raised by Honorable Ayariga, which is discriminatory, and the Constitution of this country is so clear. Mr. Speaker, you were ably voted for by the people of the party, and it might interest our friends on the other side that I hail from that constituency. And I represent the people of Dome-Pabenya in Greater Accra region. Mr. Speaker, to say that you are physically present here and have a seat people of Bekwai and for the Member of Parliament for Boko, Honorable Ayariga, to say that you had no right to be in the chamber is out of order. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. And Mr. Speaker,
Honourable members, order. Kindly bring your conclusion. Kindly conclude, Honourable Minister.
thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I also want to state on record, Mr. Speaker, this is a house of record, and as the former Deputy Majority Leader of this house, I was present in this house yesterday. Mr. Speaker,
You are not here.
Mr. Speaker, and to state categorically that I cannot force Honorable Okujeto Ablakwa, who is my friend on the other side, to dress the way I want him to dress. And that is an insult on womanhood. And so those making that noise, Mr. Speaker, should withdraw. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Honourable, can you conclude your... Yes, conclude.
Mr. Speaker, 102 says that a quorum of Parliament, apart from the person presiding, shall be 1/3 of all the members of Parliament. It also uses the word all the members of Parliament. The argument of the majority group is that 104 also deals with quorum for taking decisions. And it also says, except as otherwise provided in this Constitution, matters in Parliament shall be determined by the votes of the majority of members present and voting, with at least half of all the members of Parliament present. So the Constitution uses all the members of Parliament in 102 and also uses all the members of Parliament in 104 and has exempted that the Speaker, the person presiding, should not be calculated to be part of all the members of Parliament. Mr. Speaker, so it is obvious that this Constitution does not mince words when it expresses its intention that anytime we are calculating quorum of all the members of Parliament, we should always exempt the person presiding. So, Mr. Speaker, yesterday, based on this irregularity, a motion was moved and which was approved by yourself, that the House accordingly approved the budget statement and economic policy of the government for the year ending 31st December 2022, subject to the concessions outlined by the responsible for finance in his concluding statement on the motion. There was no such motion before this House. There was no motion subject to concluding remarks. Which motion is called subject to concluding remarks? That we are not aware of any motion called motion subject to concluding remarks.
Where are the concessions?
And where are the concessions? What are they? How can you approve a motion making concessions that you don't know? All of you, 137 people, you didn't know the concessions, and yet you went ahead and approved it. How about the concessions say that we MPs should no longer be paid salaries?
What is the concession?
What are the concessions? Tell us what the concessions are.
The effect of the concession.
If the concessions say that everybody should start paying 50% income tax, you didn't know, and you went ahead and voted for a motion subject to concessions that you are not aware of.
Mr. Speaker, on that note, Mr. Speaker, I second the motion by the minority leader to set aside all that happened yesterday as a total nullity. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Leader, can I admit one person before you so that you have two people each contributing to it? Yes.
Mr. Speaker, with the greatest of respect, it is obvious that our national constitution risks being defiled, Mr. Speaker. The provisions of the constitution on this matter is clear. Mr. Speaker, Article 102 and Article 104 are clearly distinguishable. Mr. Speaker, they are clearly distinguishable. And Mr. Speaker, for the avoidance of doubt, let me repeat Article and Article 104. Article 102 reads, Mr. Speaker, a quorum of Parliament, apart from the person presiding. Mr. Speaker, the emphasis, Mr. Speaker, the emphasis is on the person presiding. That's the emphasis. Shall be 1/3 of all the members of Parliament. Mr. Speaker, it is needless to point out that this quorum, pursuant to Article 102, is quorum for conducting business. Mr. Speaker, in that respect, Mr. Speaker, in that respect, may I respectfully refer the House. May I respectfully refer the House to the book written by the respected jurists K.B. Ayensu and S.N. Dako on an introduction to the law, practice, and procedure of Parliament of Ghana. Mr. Speaker, that is clearly stated, the distinguishing between the quorum for conducting business. So that is Article 102.
Honorable Member, kindly hold on. Yes, Leader.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, my colleague is grossly out of order. We are talking about our constitution and our standing orders, and you are talking about a book somebody has written that nobody is. If you want us to make progress with that book, you should let that book so that we can see the references. We are talking about standing orders and constitution, and you are talking about somebody else. And Mr. Speaker, my colleague Honorable Address Afo, in a point of order, was talking about she was present yesterday. Mr. Speaker, very soon we'll get to know whether Honorable Address Afo was truly in the chamber yesterday or it was a different person who was there yesterday.
Honorable, please continue.
Mr. Speaker, I referred to Article 102 and I fortified Article 102 with an authority. I will pardon my senior brother, he's not a lawyer, so you have to back your authorities with reference to Mr. Speaker. Article 104 reads, except as otherwise provided in this Constitution, matters in Parliament shall be determined by the vote of the majority of members present and voting, with at least half of all the members of Parliament present. Mr. Speaker, this is the distinction. The distinction is that whereas in Article 102, the framers of the Constitution deliberately mentioned the person presiding for purposes of quorum for conducting business, in Article 104, the framers of the Constitution deliberately omitted mentioning the person presiding for purposes of sorrow. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, with the greatest of respect, the first year student of a class of interpretation will be taught the canon or tool of interpretation, which states, and I quote, expresso unis es exclusio alterum. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, quote, express mention of a thing implies the exclusion of all others, end quote. If the framers of the Constitution intended that the person presided ought to be excluded for the purposes of a quorum for taking a decision, they would have said so expressly. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, that is the law. Mr. Speaker, may I also refer the House to Article 57 of the Constitution. Article 57(2) states, and I quote, the President shall take precedence over all other persons in Ghana, and in descending order, the Vice President, the Speaker of Parliament, and the Chief Justice shall take precedence over all other persons in Ghana, end quote. In this Article 57(2), the order is the President, the Vice President, the Speaker, and the Chief Justice. Mr. Speaker, when you go to Article 20 of the Constitution, where it talks about succession, the framers of the Constitution talks about the President. When the President is not there, the Vice President. When the Vice President is not there, the Speaker. The framers of the Constitution deliberately omitted the Chief Justice on the principle that I've enunciated, the expresso principle. You cannot include the Chief Justice in Article 60. That is on all fours with Article 102 and 104 when it comes to the person presiding. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, that is the law. And further, Mr. Speaker, any careful examination of the 1992 National Constitution as a whole, any examination of the 1992 Constitution as a whole, Mr. Speaker, you will realize that the framers of the Constitution keep using Speaker, First Deputy Speaker, Second Deputy Speaker, and the person presiding. They use them. They don't use them interchangeably. They use Mr. Speaker.
Hold on. Yes, what order are you referring to?
Oh, what's it?
Mr. Speaker, thank you very much. Mr. Speaker, I rise to on a point of order to say that the minister is misleading the House. Mr. Speaker, the minister in quoting 104. Mr. Speaker, the minister in quoting Article 104 of the Constitution said, except as otherwise provided in this Constitution. And the minister must be reminded that in his argument, you already made reference to Article 103.
Hold on there.
And 103 has already provided.
One day that is not in the Constitution. You are trying to contribute to the argument. That is not the point of order. If your leaders choose that you must contribute, they will give you the floor. Thank you. I don't remember continue.
Mr. Speaker, on the matter of quorum, fortunately, on the principle of stare decisis, the principle of precedent, this parliament has had an occasion. And Mr. Speaker, I have in my hand here the Hansard of this House dated Tuesday, 22nd December 2015, where this same matter came up for consideration. And Mr. Speaker, it is instructive to note, that the current Speaker of Parliament, the Right Honorable Alban Babbage, had something to say about this particular matter we are discussing in this chamber. Mr. Speaker, at exactly 3:20 p.m., when this matter came up for litigation, the Right Honorable Speaker, then Majority Leader, on 22nd December 2015, at exactly 3:20 p.m., had this to say. Mr. Speaker, it's very instructive. May I read it out to the House? And I quote, this is Mr. Babin speaking in the Hansard, and I quote, "In the case of head count, Mr. Speaker shall take the vote of the House by calling upon members who support or oppose his decision successively to rise in their places. A member may vote in a division, even if he did not hear the question put. Mr. Speaker, it is important for this to be ironed out clearly. Uproar. Mr. Speaker, after you have taken the count, it is incumbent on Mr. Speaker to announce the results. After that, others can follow, but it's unprecedented to defer the results. Mr. Speaker, the results will have to be announced for us to know." Interruption. "This is because I believe that we satisfy the constitutional provision as provided in Article 104, and I will want to read that Article 104 says," and he quotes, and he goes on, "Mr. Speaker, we are 275 members. Half of that is 138. Mr. Speaker, I believe that we are more than 138, so we satisfy the constitutional provision." Mr. Speaker, even more instructively, Mr. Speaker, the Right Honorable Speaker at the time, Honorable Doe Ajawo, gave a ruling on that litigation. And Mr. Speaker, the ruling is captured in the Hansard of 22nd December 2015. And Mr. Speaker, with your permission, let me quote the ruling of Honorable Doe Ajawo, because it's so instructive. It settles this matter in many respects. And I quote, he says, "Honorable members, you are aware that this House is not supreme. We are subject to the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana. The rule is that where the Constitution has made a provision for regulation of the business of the House, they take precedence over any other. And indeed, the standing orders of this House, there is quorum to do business, and that is 1/3 of the House. And there is quorum to take decision. So we need to draw a distinction between the quorum to do business and the quorum to take decision. Mr. Speaker, the quorum to take a decision is regulated by Article 104(1). The fundamental question is that the time that the vote was taken, did we have at least half of the honorable members present? It is a constitutional issue which has to be captured in the standing order 1091 of our standing orders. If we go by the results of the head count, by adding 67 to 66, we will get 133. Therefore, there is a serious constitutional issue here. So, at the time that the votes were taken, this House lacked the legal, in fact, the constitutional capacity to take a decision. So, I entirely endorse the position taken by the Honorable First Deputy Speaker that we do not have the number, constitutionally speaking, to take a decision. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, no decision has been taken, end quote. So, Mr. Speaker, the import of what the learned Right Honorable Speaker Doe Ajawo is making is exactly the point I'm making, that Article 102 and 104 are distinguishable. And so our friends from the other side, their reliance on Article 102 does not help their case, does not resolve the matter. If you want to find out whether or not the person presiding can be part of the quorum to take a decision, go to Article 104. Go to Article 104. It is black and white. It is established. And Mr. Speaker, in conclusion, there are replete of authorities from the Supreme Court to affirm this decision of distinction. And Mr. Speaker, there are so many of them that I can't give all of them to you. But permit me to cite one of the locus classicus when it comes to the canon or the tool of interpretation of distinguishing between one part of a document and another part of a document, where if a matter is expressly mentioned in one part of the document but not mentioned in the other, it means that it is excluded. Mr. Speaker, I refer to Kwajoga Adra versus National Democratic Congress, writ number JI/13/2014, Supreme Court, dated 15 July 2015. So, Mr. Speaker, let me conclude by urging upon you that what took place yesterday in this House was constitutional, was lawful, was legal, was appropriate, was in accord with the practice and conventions of this House, and indeed, as members of the choir, you are entitled to be counted for purposes of a quorum to take a decision. And we didn't need Mr. Speaker voting to take a decision. We needed half of the members present to take a decision. And that decision is valid and must stand. Mr. Speaker,
yes, honorable member for Bolga Central. All right.
Listen to your lecturer.
Listen.
Thank you. Right, Honorable Speaker. In the spirited defense that the Honorable Member for Damango has put up, I hear a number of arguments. And Mr. Speaker, my former student, I am not. Mr. Speaker, my former student, he invoked the expressio unios ex exclusio altarios dictum. And he then proceeded to my disappointment, to my utter dismay. He then proceeded to misapply the principle. The reason is very simple, Mr. Speaker. The principle of law is that in the construction of documents such as the Constitution, the National Constitution, the document must be read as a whole. You must interpret the document as a whole in order to be able to give effect to its letter and its spirit. Mr. Speaker, with respect to that particular issue, what the Honorable Member for Damango failed to do was to avert his mind to the fact that in Article 102 of the Constitution, or let me take him to Article 104. 104.1 provides that except as otherwise provided in this Constitution, and usually in the drafting of national constitutions, Mr. Speaker, because a constitution is not an advertiser's announcement, you cannot put everything in the clauses of the Constitution. So, as a matter of economy of drafting, you use expressions such as except as otherwise provided in this Constitution so that you don't become repetitive. Mr. Speaker, Article 102 provides for quorum, just as Article 104. Now, Article 102 provides for the normal quorum for the conduct of ordinary business of this House. And he says, yes, that distinction was correct. But the effect to which it has in respect of Mr. Speaker's decision is what is wrong. All right? Mr. Speaker, when you read 102, it says that our quorum is 1/3. But when it comes to 104, that is decision time. And Mr. Speaker, because it says except as otherwise provided in this constitution, and because they deal with the same subject matter, we cannot read Article 104 in isolation from 102. And that is the reason why. That is the reason why the point which has been made by the honourable member for Boku Central must be taken seriously. Because in providing for quorum, it says that apart from the person presiding, and the Speaker, either the Speaker himself will preside, the first Deputy Speaker, the second Deputy Speaker, or in the absence of all three, a member. And that is why the Constitution provides, that does not say except apart from Mr. Speaker, it says apart from the member presiding. And so we must read apart from the member presiding into Article 104.1 for it to make sense. Because Article 104.1 is also a quorum provision, but it requires a higher threshold because it is a quorum provision dealing with decision. Mr. Speaker, in this house, every decision is taken by a vote.
Even determining quorum.
Every decision is taken by a vote, and it is either a voice vote,
Or a head count.
or a head count, or a ballot, or a division. Either way, when we are taking decisions, we engage in the process of voting to determine the outcome. Mr. Speaker, in those circumstances, I want to submit, just as the honourable member for Boku has said, Boku Central has said, that a person who is disqualified from voting cannot be counted for purposes of determining the quorum for that vote. Mr. Speaker, this is a fundamental rule of meetings. And Mr. Speaker, yesterday I watched you on TV and you announced to this house, that you were being counted as a member of parliament for Bekwai. We recognize you as such. But when you are in that chair, you cease to be a member of parliament for Bekwai for purposes of the vote. When you are in this chair, and Mr. Speaker, the reason I'm saying this is that, Mr. Speaker, the Constitution provides expressly that you lose your original vote. That original vote is accorded to you because 1042, it is accorded to you in your capacity as the MP for Bekwai. If the Constitution takes away that original vote, the question is, how can you then, for satisfying the precondition for a decision, now be counted for purposes of the making of that decision?
Ridiculous. Very ridiculous.
And Mr. Speaker, part of the reason why your original vote has been taken away in your capacity as Mr. Speaker is simply because, in the wisdom of the makers of the Constitution, Mr. Speaker should not descend into the arena of conflict. Mr. Speaker should not be within the fray when decisions are being made. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, in accordance with Article 97(1)(b) of the Constitution, whenever a member of Parliament is elected Speaker of this House, that member of Parliament
is made to step down and a by-election is held. We saw this happening. In the case of the Right Honorable Joe Ajaho, he had to step down. And the fundamental rationale is simple. It refers back to what I have said, that a speaker cannot be a referee and a player at the same time. That is the reason why, Mr. Speaker, I support the motion ably moved by the minority leader that he rescind the decision that was taken yesterday, because as the honorable member for Damongo said, if the decision taken on Friday was unconstitutional, if it was unlawful, if it was inappropriate, I will say that this is a gross undermining of the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana.
You didn't quote 97.
Oh, I quoted 97. How many?
Yes, Honorable Joe Gatti. Honorable member for Sikado.
Mr. Speaker, the honorable member who just spoke, who said he thought the honorable member who the people say is going, I also thought it. That's not the reason. I also thought it. And Mr. Speaker, I want to put on record that today you have made me very proud. One of the things that teachers should admire is when their students excel. In fact, the man, I don't hesitate to say that what he has done today, he has shown me that I taught him well. I don't know about you. Mr. Speaker, in principle, Mr. Speaker, some of my younger friends like Honorable Mutala, they are looking for posts. Some of us, where we are reached, are not looking for any post anymore. Mr. Speaker, as was said, when you were shouting. Mr. Speaker,
Honorable members, order. Shall we listen to the honorable member for the time?
Mr. Speaker, in Parliament, we joke with each other and so on. If mention your name is a worry to you, I apologize. I am wrong. But please, we are dealing with very serious constitutional issues, and I appreciate it if you keep quiet, like how everybody kept quiet when the former deputy attorney general. Unless, of course, you are afraid to hear what I've come to say because you're going to rubbish you. Mr. Speaker, I totally agree with Honorable Aine that the Constitution should be read as a whole. Mr. Speaker, if the Constitution, and there's no provision in the Constitution that is there for just being there sake. Mr. Speaker, if you read 102 and 104, you will see that the language is intentionally different. 102 says, and I know it has been read, but for the avoidance of doubt, let me read it again. Mr. Speaker, 102 says that a quorum for Parliament, apart from the president presiding, shall be 1/3 of all the members of Parliament. This is not. Mr. Speaker, 1/3 of the members of Parliament is less than 100. 1/3 of the members of Parliament is less than 100. So, Mr. Speaker, indeed, even taking you out on that day, there were more than 96 members or 100 members in Parliament. So there was a quorum. That cannot be debated because we are supported by Article 102. The question of quorum has arisen in this House time and time again. And perhaps instead we look at it when we start looking at our news. Some have argued, I've heard an argument that quorum is when we sign So, for example, I've heard the argument that the day before, 275 people signed it. So at every time, that quorum existed. I've heard the argument from somewhere. Mr. Speaker, the question of quorum is that, in my view, let him talk.
I haven't given him the floor. Kindly.
Mr. Speaker, I'm so surprised because I have not even mentioned his name. As I've heard the argument. Mr. Speaker, the question in some parliaments, there are not even enough chairs for the members of parliament. So the question is that there's a presumption that there's a quorum unless it is raised. There's a presumption that there's a quorum unless it is raised. Mr. Speaker, but the Speaker at any time, having regard to the facts available to him, may see that there is no quorum and there's no motive, take a decision that there is no quorum. So, for example, if the quorum to take a decision is 138 and there are only 137 people in the room, the Speaker must see that there are only 137 people and he must come to the conclusion that we don't have enough people to take a decision. Mr. Speaker, but as far as quorum is concerned, you are covered by Article 102. The next step is that now the meeting has started. The next step is that can we take a decision and who can take the decision? Can we take a decision and who can take the decision? Then we come comfortably to 104. And 104 does not talk about quorum. It says that 104.1, except as otherwise provided in this constitution, matters in Parliament shall be determined by the votes of the majority of members present and voting, with at least half of the members of Parliament present. So when you have a quorum of 1/3, when it comes to taking a decision, there must be at least half there. And the half that must be there, the majority must vote. Mr. Speaker, I don't even want to venture into the field of whether, as a deputy speaker, you had a vote or not, because you didn't vote. I don't want to venture into that. No. What is known is that out of the people who were present, 137 voted, and the majority of people who were here voted for the nobody voted against it. The records are clear. Mr. Speaker, we should not try and make, because of this situation, the Speaker, we should not make the Speaker equal to the Deputy Speaker. Honorable Babil, when he was second Deputy Speaker, when I was second Deputy Speaker, I remember once in the evening, I raised an issue, I gave a ruling. Mr. Speaker, you were there. Honorable Chairman was on the other side. Honorable Babil got up and said that the second Deputy Speaker is not the Speaker. They are different. And I agree with him. Because when you look at our standing orders and when you look at our rules, Mr. Speaker, you are a first Deputy Speaker. You are not the Speaker of Parliament. Indeed, what was read yesterday was that the Speaker was out of town. So for the purposes of his work in chamber, you step into his shoes. That was what was read yesterday. Our law is very clear, Mr. Speaker, as to your role. Our law is very clear as to what you can do. And Mr. Speaker, you did exactly what the Constitution allows you to do. Mr. Speaker, I agree that we are on some uncharted territory, but I want to remind all of us to be mindful of the provisions of our standing orders when we enter into said church. It says that except otherwise provided in these orders or the Constitution of the Republic of Ghana, these orders shall not restrict the mode in which Parliament exercises and upholds its powers, privileges, and immunities. So indeed, anybody who is arguing that what Mr. Speaker did was wrong must show us the provision of the Constitution which do not allow him to do what he did. Mr. Speaker, the second and last thing I'll say before I take my seat is I refer all of us to Order 6. Mr. Speaker, and Order 6 says that in all cases not provided by these orders, Mr. Speaker shall make provisions as he deems fit. Mr. Speaker, what you did yesterday was constitutional. It was guided by the standing orders. Your ruling will stand the test of time. And indeed, Mr. Speaker,
I urge you to start firm. I urge you not to change your mind, because what you did, Mr. Speaker, is grounded in the Constitution, is grounded in the standing orders, is grounded in the practice of Parliament, and is grounded on previous precedent. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes. Honorable. Yes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Do you know what you are going to say?
Mr. Speaker, the lawyers have spoken. And I've been arguing about students and professors. But Mr. Speaker, we are talking about our standing orders. 3 things govern this House: the 1992 Constitution, the standing orders, and our practice. Nobody can take our practice, the precedents that we've set in this House, aside and make it look as if all of a sudden it doesn't exist. It does exist. And Mr. Speaker, without repeating most of the arguments, if, Mr. Speaker, anybody is making reference to Article 102, I just want all of us to start reading from Order 100. What is the heading there in the 1992 Constitution? The heading there is Procedure in Parliament. So it's talking about the whole processes that happens in Parliament. That is why you cannot be picking and choosing which one suits your argument and ignoring the others. Because, Mr. Speaker, when Article 102 talks about a quorum of Parliament, and 104 repeats that except otherwise provided in this Constitution, you cannot separate the two. Because in counting to get a quorum, because if there were 91 people in the chamber, and Speaker or First Lady Speaker, for that matter, who has become Speaker, is presiding, will you say there's quorum or there will be no quorum? You say there will be no quorum, because you cannot count him and add, even though he still remains the member for the quiet. Yes, you will not count him, because you will not have quorum. Why is it that when you count to 104, you want to add him? And listen to the text of 104. 104, Mr. Speaker, with your permission, I read. Except otherwise provided in this Constitution, matters in Parliament shall be determined by the vote of majority of members present and voting. It is joint. You have to be present and be able to vote. It is not separate. It is not present or who can vote. It says that present and voting, meaning that anybody who is present that has to be counted must be capable of voting. And Mr. Speaker, you know from our orders,
From the first Constitution.
maybe from the first Constitution first, Order Article 110. With your permission, I read. That talks about the powers of Parliament to be able to make, to develop the standing orders. Mr. Speaker, so if the Constitution itself says that we will develop a standing order that will help us to run this House, and I read, subject to the provisions of the Constitution, Parliament may by standing orders regulate its own procedure. And Mr. Speaker, you come to Order 48, it is explicitly repeated the wording of 102 that exempts you from being counted as part of quorum. When we go to 109 of our standing orders, it exempts you from voting. Mr. Speaker, with the greatest of respect, Mr. Speaker, you came to meet me in this House. In this House, I'm your senior. But I've never had a privilege of climbing this stairs and sitting on that seat. It is a privilege that we, as a House, have honored you. And the Constitution and the standing order says, anytime you have that honor, you should not vote. It is for a reason, to keep you neutral. And for that matter, when decisions are going to be made, you should not be part of that decision. Why is it that you want to be counted as part of the number to be considered in taking decision. When you are not supposed to be part of the decision, but you want to be counted as the number that includes or that pave way for a decision to be taken. Mr. Speaker, I overheard my colleague Honorable Jogate. Unfortunately, he stepped out, and he knows the rules of the house. When you finish speaking, Eskime will tell you, you don't walk out when others are speaking. So it will be good, Honorable Jogate, to be back. Mr. Speaker, I refer Honorable Jogate to order 7 of our standing orders. He said, I'll come to 6. He said, the first deputy speaker is not the speaker. But listen to our standing orders. Our standing orders in order 7. Mr. Speaker, with your permission, I read. Says the definition of speaker. Speaker or Mr. Speaker includes a person, a member presiding at a sitting. So that's why in our house, anytime any of them are there, we still refer to them as Mr. Speaker. So for you, as Honorable Jogate, to say that he is not a speaker, he's only the first deputy speaker, our standing order says he is a speaker and he must be referred to as Mr. Speaker. And therefore, he's clothed with all the privileges. He's clothed with all the privileges of Mr. Speaker. But he cannot eat his cake and have it. Because he cannot take the privileges and clothed with the powers of Mr. Speaker, and yet doesn't want to shy away from the disadvantage of being Mr. Speaker. And for this instance, the worry for him is that he enjoys being called Mr. Speaker, but he wants to be part of the number to take a decision. He wants to be the referee, as one of my colleagues said, and player at the same time. Mr. Speaker, my colleague Honorable Jogate said, if Deputy Speaker is not the Speaker, can a Deputy Speaker overturn the decision of a Speaker? Can a lower court override the decision of a higher court? Well, let me now take him to Order 6, which he has quoted. Mr. Speaker, Order 6. Mr. Speaker, sorry, I take objection to him using his left. He's pointing to me with his left. Oh, sorry. With a greater respect. He started his can't point to me with the left. Speaker, now I'm referring to him with my left. I'm really very sorry.
Honorable members, order. Honorable member for Keta. What is your objection? I try to avoid any more interjections, but what is it that is tilting you?
Mr. Speaker, we live in a country. Mr. Speaker, you shouldn't also be speaking. If he is a senior in this house, and that is what he wants to teach us, they will copy that. Mr. Speaker, he brought us together.
Honorable Samuel George, and can you resume your seat? Honorable member for Tamale North, can you resume your seat? Can you resume your seat, please? Honorable leaders, I will not countenance.
Mr. Speaker,
yes, let me
saying
hear
that the Honorable Mutaka is my colleague and a very good friend. We worked together in the past. But today, Honorable Mutaka is continuously pointing at me with his left hand.
You're out of order.
In my culture, in his as well.
Honorable, you're out of order. Yes, can you continue?
Mr. Speaker, even though you rule it out, I'm not aspiring to be president. I'm Vice President, I apologize. I will point my left hand at you. I will keep pointing to you with my right hand. You know I'm left-handed, so sometimes I forget and I'll use my left hand. I'll be mindful, even though it's been ruled out. Mr. Speaker, he quoted Order 6, where the other, Mr. Speaker, I also want to repeat, in all cases not provided for in these orders, Mr. Speaker shall make provisions as he deems fit.
In this case.
So, Mr. Speaker, the main speaker himself used Order 6 to make rulings as he deemed fit. You said that he was wrong, and you came to do a kangaroo overturn yesterday. And you are now saying that the lower court, that did the kangaroo overturn yesterday, he did not change his mind. What kind of inconsistency? Mr. Speaker, with the greatest of respect, Mr. Speaker, I know Right Honorable Speaker Alban Babin is your senior at the bar. And I also know Right Honorable Speaker Alban Babin is your far senior in this house. He gives you his back. I'm leaving. Take over. And you come and sit and say, Mr. Speaker was wrong. What he did was illegal. A lower court tried to turn the decision of a higher court. And that one for you. And when you finish, you come and say you are talking about cooperation. Eat your cake and want to eat your cake and have it. Let's talk and dialogue. This country belongs to all of us. This country doesn't belong to one particular group. The country belongs to all of us. And all of us are very mindful. Very, very mindful. If this ship goes down, it goes down with all of us. I am not calling for the ship to go down. What we are saying is that be mindful of the concerns of the ordinary people. They are telling you that this budget is problematic. Mr. Speaker, my colleague Honorable Jogati had to issue a statement to correct an impression by this very body that the Esupon Sports Stadium was about 90% complete. He issued a statement to say, no, the budget statement is inaccurate. And we are asking him to say, all those statements should be corrected. And you say you can't join us. You are being inconsistent with what you are demanding and what you are asking for now. So, Mr. Speaker, what the purported kangaroo overturned yesterday, Mr. Speaker, cannot be allowed to stay because those who are on the floor to take the decision were 137. And the vote and proceedings of today has clearly indicated that. Because, Mr. Speaker, by no imagination, is not supposed to form part of the decision making.
Right,
and therefore, he cannot. Yet on Friday, we were 274. 274 were in the house. I've heard people worried. We don't want the record to stay that our budget was rejected. I want to burn all the Hansard. I want to burn all the vote and proceedings. That is staying in the history of this country, whether you like it or not. But let's make amends so that we're able to move forward as one people. And we have made very constructive suggestions yesterday. All what is left is about ego. Put the ego aside. Let us all shift and meet in the middle so that we can get a budget that we can work on without much problem. So, Mr. Speaker, with this, I'm tempted. In fact, I'm tempted to correct my colleague, Honorable Abu Jinabo. When he was saying that when the Constitution is talking, the standing orders, they all talk about Speaker, Deputy Speakers. Mr. Speaker, I'm referring to our standing orders 11. When the Speaker is not there, and the two Deputy Speakers are not there, we are to elect among us the senior most to go and sit. When that person sits, if it is member of Aswasi, he loses the privileges of voting and being part of decision. Once you get elected, to go and sit there. You lose those. So you cannot claim the privileges and we don't want to go to suffer the consequences that goes with the privileges. All of us suffer that as members of parliament. We certainly don't have privacy, but we've elected to be members of parliament. So, Mr. Speaker, with this comment, I want the House to overwhelmingly reject the kangaroo overturned yesterday and let us go back to the drawing board and talk and get a proper budget. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the business about...
Leader, before you continue, honorable members, having regard to the state of the business of the House, I direct that the House sits outside the regular sitting hours.
Mr. Speaker, the business about the motion that the minority leader has purportedly filed, which has no prior consent of the Speaker. Mr. Speaker, is to the effect that the decision that was taken yesterday was supported by 137 members in the House and therefore should be considered a nullity. Mr. Speaker, since Friday up to yesterday, the position of my colleagues on the other side was that nothing bad had happened when they purportedly took a decision binding the entire House, which was supported by 137. Mr. Speaker, the hazard of that day, and you hear some spirited efforts to the effect that, oh, apart from the 137, there was one MPP hiding somewhere in some corner. Today, you are saying that it's 274. Mr. Speaker, the
Leader, hold on.
captures
Leader, I want to listen to him. Please, you must demonstrate that somebody has said something that is unacceptable or is against the rules. Otherwise, I'll not let you continue.
Mr. Speaker, this House is a House of record, and the debate currently is on a motion. At no point in time did our caucus say anywhere, and I say this with emphasis, that somebody was seated or hiding there. As a matter of fact, the Right Honourable Speaker asked 4 members, the clerk,
No, member did not say somebody has said it here.
So what should he say that on the floor? What should he say that on the floor? This
Honourable member, you're out of order. Leader,
what should he say that on the floor?
Mr. Speaker, I alluded to spirited effort. If the cap fits you, wear it. Mr. Speaker, I alluded to spirited efforts being made to the effect that there was one MPP MP who was hiding somewhere. Today, we are hearing that the number in the House that supported it was 274. Mr. Speaker, the Hansard captures that at the time of that decision, and they said the ayes, they recorded ayes nil, noes 137, abstention nil. That is the Hansard. Let nobody pretend. Mr. Speaker, that is what has been captured in the Hansard of the House. So, Mr. Speaker, nobody should attempt to throw dust into the eyes of the general public. Mr. Speaker, and then I hear one of our respected colleagues saying that the Speaker cannot be counted as one of us, much less to participate in the voting. Mr. Speaker, the Electoral Commissioner who supervises our elections is not barred by any law from voting, even though he declares the election. Because that was a position of the Honorable Dominic Ayine. That was the position of Honorable Dominic Ayine. And that's why I'm responding to him. But Mr. Speaker, we are dealing with the standing orders. Mr. Speaker, the minority leader is also attributing a statement to me that I said the motion should be approved subject to some concessions. Mr. Speaker, I never on this floor said the motion must be approved subject to concessions. I never. And that is for the record. So the minority leader should not attribute anything to me that I did not say. You were somewhere and you might have heard something different, but certainly on the floor of this house,
Leader, hold on. Yes, Honorable Chief Whip. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the leader must be factually accurate. Mr. Speaker, the vote on Friday is here. The 137 that is talking about is the vote on the division. It is not the vote on the budget. And there are two differences, and he knows between one vote and the other, anything can happen unless somebody call for a head count. And nobody did. But because you did for the division, that was why the one on division was done and recorded the 137. But the one on the budget, there was no any count to tell how many people were here. So, and you decided to run away from your own budget so that you will not be here to raise the issue of head count. So you know exactly how many people. So get this right.
Mr. Speaker, I raised this very matter about the confusion how the minister captured proceedings. And if you listen to me, if you are in the chamber, you would have realized the point that he's making. I made the same point, that that portion is inappropriately captured. It's sad that we are not here, so we want to bring us back. And that is why you should have been here. But Mr. Speaker, I've heard arguments about what obtains in the Constitution. And let me make a distinction. Mr. Speaker, you don't need to be a lawyer to understand this. You need to have common sense. Mr. Speaker, the Constitution in the very article that people have been talking about, Article 104, talks about the Speaker. And Mr. Speaker, 104 provides that 104.2 that they are quoting, the Speaker shall have neither an original nor a casting vote. The Speaker, I want to suggest that the Speaker mentioned here is not a Deputy Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Article 95 draws a distinction between a Speaker and a Deputy Speaker. Mr. Speaker, and 95 provides there shall be a Speaker of Parliament who shall be elected by members of Parliament from amongst persons who are members of Parliament who are qualified to be elected as members of Parliament. The Speaker shall vacate his post. The Speaker, when you come to 96, it deals with Deputy Speakers. There shall be 2 Deputy Speakers. Mr. Speaker, then 101 says, the Speaker shall preside, not a Speaker, the Speaker. Mr. Speaker, people should be well educated and informed before they make pronouncements. It is about the Speaker and not a Speaker. Mr. Speaker, so you come to 102, which provides that a quorum of Parliament, apart from the person presiding, shall be 1/3 of all members of Parliament.
And then 104(2) goes on to provide the speaker shall have neither an original nor casting vote. The speaker, I want to suggest to my colleagues that speaker that's been mentioned is the speaker elected under the Constitution in Article 95, not a deputy speaker. Don't confuse the two. Don't misread and misinterpret the Constitution. This is the speaker, is the fine line of distinction. Is a speaker, he is a speaker, not the speaker.
Order, please. Order.
A deputy speaker is a speaker, not the speaker. That's the distinction. That is the distinction. And I thought people clothing themselves with professorial clothing would understand this basic thing. Mr. Speaker, so if you think anywhere the speaker is mentioned, it should have universal application to envelop the two deputy speakers. Then, Mr. Speaker, let's go to Article 95(5), which provides. 95(5) provides. The Speaker, let me read. 95(5). The Speaker shall receive such salary and allowances, and on his retirement, such retiring awards as may be determined in accordance with Article 71 of this Constitution. So that should include the deputy speakers. That should include the deputy speakers. That refers to the Speaker. This, you can't even appreciate this. Mr. Speaker, so let's put that one aside. Because the two deputy speakers don't come under Article 95(5). It is about the Speaker. That's the distinction that you should appreciate. Mr. Speaker, now let me go on to the issues raised by my colleague, the minority leader. Because he referred to Order 48. Mr. Speaker, it's already been argued that Order 48 refers to the normal business of doing this, the normal conduct of business in the House. And I'm happy that the Honorable Muntaka, the Chief Whip for the minority leader, says that apart from the Constitution and the standing orders, we should be guided by practice. And the practice is where Right Honorable Doe Ajaho presiding made this distinction in this House, that the rule is that, and I quote him, and that is what was quoted by the Honorable Abu Jinapor, and I quote him, December 22nd, 2015, he says, the rule is that where the Constitution has made a provision for regulation of business of the House, they take precedence over any other, indeed the standing orders of this House. And he says, there is a quorum to do business, that is 1/3 of the House, and there is another quorum for taking a decision from Dojo. So he establishes that there are two sets of quorum. It's informative. If you are talking about practice in this House, refer to it. Why are you now wanting to depart from that? Mr. Speaker, so the Order 109, Order 109 that you are talking about, it provides, Mr. Speaker, Order 109, just to repeat, provides no question for decision in the House shall be proposed for determination unless there are present in the House not less than 1/2 of all the members of the House. Not less than 1/2 of all the members of the House. Mr. Speaker, the question then is, Mr. Speaker, I will continue, but the question then is a deputy minister, a deputy speaker presiding, is he a member of this House? Does he worship? He doesn't. He is a member of the House. So thereby satisfies Order 109(1). So Speaker, this is commonplace logic. This is commonplace logic. I'll read on. Mr. Speaker, but when the minority leader was making his point, I sat and listened to him. Why don't you want to have patience? Why don't you want to have patience?
Honorable leader, hold on, let me listen to you. Yes, leader, can I listen to you?
Mr. Speaker,
kindly give me time, please, yes.
Speaker, yes, he heard me, but let him be reminded that when I quoted Order 51 you rose and quoted 52. Mr. Speaker, let him complete the reading of 1091. Complete it for the record. And then, complete it for the record, Mr. Speaker. Then you say, Speaker. Mr. Speaker includes a member presiding at a sitting. Don't set aside our standing orders. We are grossly misleading this house. So let him complete standing order 1091. Don't read it halfway. Read it in full for our purposes. Thank you.
Mr. Speaker, no value addition. Mr. Speaker, the point I'm making is that the Deputy Speaker who mounts the chair does not cease to be a member of this house. That's the point. That's point number one. Now, number two, 1092 says that the Speaker shall have neither an original nor a casting vote. Right? The Speaker, that's appreciated. That is commonplace. And that is why the Speaker did not participate in the voting. That's the distinction that we are failing to appreciate. It's a distinction that we are failing to appreciate. He didn't need to vote. He added to the number to establish the fact that there were 138 members in the House. That is what we fail to appreciate because it's beyond you. Mr. Speaker, that is it. So, once you have the 138 members in the House, and for a particular matter, even 70 of the 138 vote for it, the motion is carried. I can't appreciate why people can't even understand this. Because it's beyond you. It's beyond you. You can't even appreciate this. Mr. Speaker, so that is the purpose. So, Mr. Speaker, I respectfully want to submit that all this exercise is an exercise in futility. It's a prodigal waste of the time of this House. And Mr. Speaker, I invite you to make a ruling on this matter to save this House further embarrassment. Mr. Speaker, thank you very much.
Yes, Honorable Samuel Gujato. Very well. I thought you wanted to raise any legal issue, but other members, here's my ruling. I have not heard anything here today which was not discussed yesterday. All the arguments that have been made were practically the arguments and the issues raised and discussed contained in my ruling yesterday. A few matters, though, which I wish to clarify. First, it must be clear that a deputy speaker is not a speaker. Indeed, Article 96(1) Article 96(1) of the Constitution says, and I quote, there shall be 2 deputy speakers of parliament who shall be elected by members of parliament from among members of parliament. And if you contrast that with Mr. Speaker is not a member of parliament. I am a member of parliament. The Honorable Second Deputy Speaker is a member of parliament, and our role is to assist the Speaker in managing this House. So, any attempt, any attempt to read, I'm not a member, if you don't keep quiet, I will be forced to ask you to leave. Any attempt to read and interpret the constitution of Mr. Speaker to include the deputy speakers is a misreading and a misapplication of the constitution. But when Mr. Speaker is not available, either of us will preside on the House. So can any other member, if necessary. Any other member can be elected by the House to preside. That member does not lose his right to be a member of the House. That is what they say. Honourable members, when it comes to the question of voting, it is very clear. Anytime any of the deputy speakers or any other member elected to preside is in the chair, that member does not vote. That has never been in dispute. Anytime a member is presiding, either a deputy speaker or a member who by necessity is elected from among members to preside, that person does not vote. He's debating. We are debating. Who was that? Shut up! You should shut up, brother. Who was that? Can the minister find that person and work him out?
Mani we are ruling. Hey, Farouk, please. Sit down. Let him Speaker, rule quickly.
Honourable members, I'll continue with the ruling. The debate on Article 102 and 104 has been made, and it is not new. I was here on this side of the House when the matter relating to Abu Janapo, referred to and repeated by the Speaker, was made. The first ruling was made by Honourable Martin Odro, the then First Deputy Speaker. It's related to the Bank of Ghana Act, which we had ruled, we had voted. The members in the minority were more than the members in the majority. But when you add the two together, it did not add to 1/2 of the members. And so the presiding deputy speaker then said that vote is invalid. Those on the minority challenged it. But when Mr. Speaker, Honorable Doa Jaho came, he explained that, and he referred to the constitutional provisions to justify that unless 50% or more were in the House, the vote was invalid. That has been stated and over again. But members refer to, the applicants refer to Article 104 and say that unless otherwise provided. Yes, let's go to Article 104. Article 104, it says voting in Parliament. It should be differentiated from 102, which says quorum in Parliament. 102 says quorum in Parliament. 104 says voting in Parliament. And that is the interpretation given by the Honorable Doa Jaho, Right Honorable Doa Jaho. So the clear distinction has been set out and it is on record in this House. Again, when members argue that except otherwise provided in the Constitution, it is clear that it is provided for in Article 2912, where it is required that a decision be made by 2/3 of members. It doesn't mean that we should go to the quorum for. So, honorable members, let me put on record that
Mr. Speaker,
am a member of
Mr. Speaker,
Parliament.
so what are you
I
doing?
was counted
Because
to
there's
the
a motion
and
that was suspended in this house.
But
What are you doing? You don't rule on it. We have to take a decision.
I did not vote
Tell me in the standing order what is
therefore the application.
He cannot
the
rule.
request, the
He cannot rule on an
application
motion that is before the house. No. How can he rule on the motion? He cannot rule on the motion before the house. How can he rule? Show us the standing order.
Honourable members, sitting is suspended for 1 hour.
You are not a speaker. You are not a speaker. You are not a
He's not a speaker. He's not a speaker anymore. What is this?